That man remains at the top of it, and one would expect he's going to stay there throughout. That's obviously Caleb Williams there from USC. Former Heisman Trophy winner would give Chicago the opportunity to reset the quarterback position and maybe become the first since Kyle Orton to start week 1. He has Chicago taking Caleb number 1, then taking Malik Neighbors number 9 in mock draft 2.0. We can see it right there. You see some of the other decisions that are made. Jaden Daniels at 2, Drake Maye at 3. Let's get into the conversation here with Mel and the whole. Let's go to the Penta box as we bring in this entire group here. That one's just for Scott Hansen. Okay, so Mel, let's go through this here. Number 1 is Caleb Williams. Number 2 is Jaden Daniels. Number 3 is Drake Maye. Is it your anticipation that when we get to the end of April, that will continue to hold? We got a lot of steps between now and then. Is it your expectation that's going to be the order these 3 guys go in?
I think unless Chicago is blown away by an offer, I think that is the way it will end up, and certainly he'll be the number 1 pick overall regardless. I think Jaden Daniels, 2nd overall, to me, has to happen. You think about Washington, what they need. You think about in the NFC, if you can hit on that elite quarterback like Jaden can become, obviously the comps to Lamar Jackson are out there. Herm Edwards, who brought him to Arizona State, his comp is Randall Cunningham. So for Jaden Daniels to play so well, being aggressive with his legs, aggressive with his arm. Think about what he did. Hembo brought to my attention about Nick Saban. 2 games against Nick Saban. Nick Saban had no answers for Jaden Daniels, okay? So to be aggressive and not turn the ball over really impressed me. And he got his weight up. He was a splendid splinter. Now he's got his weight up a bit. So for Jaden, you lock him into 2. Drake Maye to 3 to New England. Why not? New England has to get a quarterback. As I said, they hung Mac Jones out to dry. He had a great rookie year. Then they did nothing to help the kid. They got to help Drake Maye. Drake Maye is only 21 years of age. Yes, he had some head-scratching games. NC State, Virginia, Clemson. But overall, when you look at what he was able to do during his career, in 2022, outstanding. He had 6 games this year. From the first 3 when he was 4 touchdowns, 4 picks, to the last 3 where he was 4 and 4. In between 6 games, 16 touchdowns, only 1 pick. He has those Justin Herbert comparisons I think are accurate. That's who he could become. He's only 21 years of age. He can make any throw you need him to make. He can move well. He's going to be able to beat defenses with his legs, keep drives alive with his legs. Drake Maye, 3 to New England. Need a quarterback. You're in the AFC. I can't believe at 3 they would trade out of there or not take Drake Maye.
All right, so I want to play something that our former colleague and longtime friend Merril Hoge said, because it's gotten a fair amount of attention. And, I mean, Tim Hasselbeck almost, I mean, he wasn't in the room, but his head almost exploded yesterday when we played it. I particularly, Lewis and Mel, I want you guys to hear Merril Hoge's evaluation of Drake Maye. Let's play it.
I wouldn't touch Maye. I wouldn't grab Maye. I wouldn't draft him in the first round. And there's a bunch of things that bother me. He's extremely inconsistent as his accuracy. His processing inconsistent. He's not extremely athletic. I find him more stiff. He's got a longer throwing motion, which allows more hits in our league than he gets in college.
So that got a lot of attention. Louis Riddick, what is your reaction?
As far as where he's going to get ultimately drafted, I mean, that's just not going to happen. He's not going to get out of the first round, and as Mel's alluding to, he's probably not going to get out of the top 10, the top 5. Some of the things, though, that Merril Hoge sees, I see some of the same things, quite honestly. I see off-target throws that are not caused by pressure, that are not caused by tight windows. I just see misses. I do see an elongated throw in motion. It is not the same as Caleb. It is not the same as Jaden. I don't see the same kind of creativity. I don't see the same kind of outside the pocket explosiveness outside of structure that I see with those 2. I do see a gap between Caleb, Jaden, and Drake Maye. I see some of those same things. Now, ultimately, where he ends up being drafted is going to be much different than what Merril is saying. What his career ends up being, I think it's going to be very much so. I think with him, he's one of those guys who needs, when we're talking about quarterbacks, all need to go to great situations and be in great systems to be utilized, to their strengths and kind of have their weaknesses hidden. I think without a doubt that Drake's development is going to be front and center as far as some of the things that Merril is talking about that he has from a deficiency standpoint, because he cannot create He cannot lift and create and do things on his own the same way Jaden and Caleb can. He just can't. I don't care you can just watch the tape and see that. He's not the same guy as those two, and that's why he is third behind those two.
Mel, how about, but it's one thing to be third. It's another thing to be questioned as significantly as Merril is questioning him. What did you think of it, Mel?
Well, I know people that hated Josh Allen, didn't think he was ever going to be an NFL quarterback. There were people that didn't like Lamar Jackson, thought he got to shift to another position. There were people that talked about Patrick Mahomes coming out of the Bologna system, and he wasn't going to be able to translate to the NFL. Joe Burrow was surrounded by great talent at LSU. Yeah, he wasn't the guy. He can't carry a team. He had all that talent around him. So I think for Drake Maye, you're gonna hear criticism. It's not who you are, it's who you will be. And for Drake Maye, he had a new coordinator. He didn't have Josh Downs, who had 94 catches 2 years ago. And he did, as Lewis said, and as when you watch the tape, and I watched those 3 games, there were throws in those games where you got to make them. There was no excuse. He had time. The receiver was there. The ball was inaccurately thrown. There were some layups he missed. Some of his swing passes that were not allowing the receiver to do the maximum with the football after the catch because he had to adjust to a poorly thrown ball, an inaccurate ball, not a precise ball. So for Drake, yes, he has to obviously develop more consistency in terms of accuracy and precise passing. But he showed in 2022 he could do that. This year, for whatever reason, there were those head-scratching performances, those head-scratching throws. So I saw it, though, in 2022. He could be really, really good. He could be great. This year, he fell back just a bit. I think you can recapture that greatness, and I think he's just 21 years of age.
Oh, a big picture point about Drake Maye? I mean, I think the
NFL
big picture point
GMs.
about all these quarterbacks is...
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that Mel's here to talk about all the decisions and create the conversation that pushes some of these people's decisions. But I just want to remind, from a couple segments earlier, remind the GMs, don't be cowards. Don't let our opinions push you into a position where you feel like you have to make a decision. Your jobs and your careers are and your reputations are riding on these decisions. So we talked about earlier, Mel, before you were here, about how so many of these GMs are going to be making decisions based on what they think they can defend, which is the wrong way to make a decision. It's to make a decision based on how you think you're going to have the most success. Because no matter what, you want to be able to go home at the end of your career and know that you succeeded or failed because you trusted your own evaluation. And I know they don't always have the end-all, be-all decision-making power. Some organizations, the owner comes in over top. But you need to push the pressure to make the decision you're going to be comfortable with.
To be clear, Mel, what I basically said was, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't wind up being a great quarterback in the NFL, no one's going to say it was a bad pick. If Caleb, the Bears, even if the easiest thing to do is to draft Caleb Williams, because no one will say it was a mistake. And if it doesn't wind up working out, the coaches and everyone else are the ones who are going to get fired. And you've been doing this, Mel, longer than anybody. Making picks to avoid getting fired is something that I feel happens a lot in the NFL.
I think you got to drown out the noise. I think you can't listen to anybody discussing anything once you're in the NFL. You want to know from a mock draft standpoint and really canvas different things and see where guys may go. That helps. But in terms of evaluations, if your guys in that room can't make that call, they should be fired. I mean, your job is to get it right. Your job isn't to fear getting it wrong. You can't be right if you're afraid to be wrong. You have to get in that room, get people you believe in that room in terms of scouts, your assistant GM, your personnel people, your coaches. Everybody has to be on the same page here, and you move forward, you roll forward with the guy you decide is that right quarterback. Keep in mind, the most important position in all sports, name the sport, put them all out there. The number one position in any sport, the most important, is quarterback in the National Football League. So when you get all your guys that are supposedly know this game better than anybody else in the room, and you decide, why do you care what Kiper, anybody else says, any discussions that are going on around the nation have to do with your team? Who cares? You believe in what you do. You have strength in your conviction about that quarterback. You make that move. If they don't like Caleb, take Jaden. You don't have to go with what everybody thinks. Like I said, you can't be right if you're afraid to be wrong.
Let me get Jeff in here. Go ahead, Jeff.
I mean, I think Brandon Beane, we showed it earlier in the show, had the quote of the freaking decade when it came to this. He said, if Josh Allen doesn't work out, I'm not going to be here anyway. And if he does work out, nobody's going to give a bleep. I mean, that's exactly right. Like, that's not coming from a position of fear. That's coming from a position of conviction. And that's how Brandon Beane approached that acquisition of Josh Allen. He knew he was his guy. He was going to go get him no matter what. And he was going to live and die by that decision.
Okay, and then there's one more thing I need to do before we let Mel go. You might have noticed over Jeff's shoulder is that picture of Lewis. Our director, Cindy, can you take our one shot of Dominique Foxworth, please? Neek, what is that picture that I see behind you on that? What is?
Oh, look at that.
It's a picture of the draft. Baltimore's own Mel Kiper. This is an image. I mean, since we're putting up pictures of our idols, I thought I would put up
a lot of love.
Baltimore's finest.
Wow.
The Kipe.
That's a lot of. Oh, Nick, I appreciate it. That's a lot of hair I've lost between now and then and now. I can tell you that right now.